Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Bible study. Hey, we have video back again. The internet really hasn't been fixed, but I have been working ahead a little bit and may give this video some more time to upload. We're talking about Proverbs 17 today, and if you want, go to our website. It's tobelikechrist.com, and you can download this PDF outline and the outlines for Psalms and Genesis through 2nd Chronicles. We have some in the New Testament, a few in the New Testament. So if you want those, go to the website and download them, and they are totally free, all the chapters. I think we are up over 600, probably approaching 700 PDFs at this point. Will I have carpal tunnel by the end of this project? Probably. Let's kick things off in our study today with our outline, our breakdown of the book. We've already covered the first 9 chapters, the way of wisdom versus the way of folly, and now we are in the Proverbs of Solomon, which are the next 19 chapters, 10 through 29. Today we're obviously in 17. We have just 2 words to get definitions for today. The first one is crucible. It appears in verse 3. A crucible is a container in which you melt metal. And then number 2 is a verb, to sire. Most of the time you hear this it's a very niche word that often is used in like horse breeding, but here it's used a little differently. It means to father a child, and you'll see it in verse 21. That's not a word that you hear a whole lot in modern English. And then we have our interpretive principle, which will be really relevant, especially in one of the Proverbs that we're going to take a look at today. As you read through the book of Proverbs, keep in mind that Proverbs discusses principles and not absolute promises. Once again today, we want to pull out 3 Proverbs to highlight, and the first one appears in verse 9. It reads like this: "Whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends." The loving thing to do when you hear about a mistake that was made by somebody is to keep it as quiet as possible. You don't want to embarrass that person or cause them any harm, more than what they've already experienced. Gossip, on the other hand, is not the loving choice. Those who unnecessarily repeat people's business are harmful. That's a harmful practice. Many people think that gossip is just kind of an innocent, guilty pleasure of theirs, but it isn't. It hurts people, it destroys relationships, and it destroys the fabric of a community, the fabric of trust in a community. And it breaks that down. I really, really believe that gossip is one of the sins that is most detrimental in the modern church, and one that gets preached on and taught on very, very little. When you choose to cover a mistake, you're choosing the path of love. When you choose to gossip, it says something bad about the state of your heart. This next proverb, number 2 for today, is pretty interesting. It appears in verse 12. "Let a man meet a she-bear robbed of her cubs rather than a fool in his folly." Mother bears have a reputation of getting extremely angry when they're separated from their cubs, and they'll do just about anything, lash out at just about anything that stands between them and being reunited. Though men are supposed to be superior intellectually and smarter than the animal, Solomon writes here that he would rather encounter the she-bear who's deprived of her cubs than a fool who's in the midst of his folly. And I think the idea here is that a fool who isn't thinking straight is more dangerous and more volatile than a bear. A fool determined to go through with his folly, whatever he's participating in, is less predictable and often less rational than a wild animal. Never underestimate the extremes to which a man not beholden to logic or wisdom will go. And I think this is an important thing to keep in mind if you come into contact with fools regularly, maybe through your job or maybe through your where you live. These people cannot be trusted and cannot always be relied on to act like rational people. Sometimes they act like animals. And maybe that's an insult to the she-bear. They act worse than animals. Okay, now proverb number 3 for today in verse 14. "The beginning of strife is like letting out water, so quit before the quarrel breaks out." It's very hard to contain your temper when maybe somebody's mad at you or you're mad at somebody else and you have a disagreement. The disagreement may start off civilly with, low tones, low voices, and a respectful tone, but if you aren't careful, you're going to be screaming at each other before long. When you have a big container of water, I think this is the idea of the proverb. You have a big container of water and you want to let the water out. You can loosen the plug slowly and the water starts to slowly come out as that plug gets looser and looser. But when the plug is completely removed, what happens? The water starts streaming out with tremendous force. Arguments are kind of similar. They start off calmly, but they very quickly get heated. And a wise man knows this. A wise man understands how easy it is for arguments to get out of control, and wisdom sometimes causes him to walk away from an argument rather than pressing the matter to the point of exploding. When people get extremely angry at one another, nothing productive hardly ever comes from that. And so the wise man says, I'm going to step back before this gets too bad, and maybe we'll pick this up later when we have more level heads. So that is our study in Proverbs 17 today. Thanks for joining me for another day, and Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow to press on through the Bible in Proverbs 18.